in terms of the entrepreneurial tech ecosystem and just entrepreneurs in general, the sad reality is that the system is rigged. What do I mean by that? I mean the fact that, first of all, we don't want you if you're a failure, is the ecosystem attitude. And an example of that is politically. I mean, that's the reason why politically it makes a lot more sense to get behind established startups that you know aren't going to fail, because they'll create more jobs, there'll be a lot more successes, and the photo ops are a lot better. Supporting at the grassroots level, where there's a lot more failure, becomes a lot more challenging. Brands don't want to be associated with it. Federally, provincially, municipally, provincially, statewide. A lot of supports don't want to get involved because they don't want to be associated with that failure. And so it's kind of thin for yourself. And that's part of the reason why it's rigged, is because the people who are more inclined to get into it are the people who have the capacity to get into it, to be able to support themselves, to self-fund themselves. And so entrepreneurship a lot of times is actually just reserved for the well-resourced. And so, you have to eventually become very efficient and resourceful to be able to start a company. And that's why the people with more resources have an upper advantage. There needs to be more platforms that support grassroots entrepreneurship, because the reality is the world's biggest problems aren't going to be solved by governments. And if it is, it's not going to happen quickly. And so we have to rely on entrepreneurs to do it. And ideally with a quick iterative loop. And that's the secret. Basically, the startups that we see that are most successful are the ones that can set up a strong iterative loop. So they have advisors that are helping them pivot really quickly. They have come up with a hypothesis, they test it, they correct it, they come back into the loop. And the faster we can make that loop, the better. And and that has a lot of benefits to the total ecosystem, especially if the ecosystem really supports these startups that are trying to do this. And a perfect example is, let's just look at, the inadequacies of a lot of governments in terms of their vaccine rollouts. Well, a lot of startups had been already starting on developing platforms without any support to be able to administer these vaccines. And it's not until we've really come into a lot of problems that actually we see governments now finally starting to reach out to some of these startups that have been solving these problems at the very beginning of, let's say, COVID-19. And so, startups, we need startups. And in my opinion, the more the better.